They buried her later in the graveyard on the prairie, where small headstones already marked the final resting places of the two babies born after Ida Kate, who had not lived more than a few days. Adored mother, beloved wife, read the gravestone. Gone from their lives but not forgotten. Mama was now an angel watching over her. Ida Kate was sure of it. She often talked to Mama. She felt certain Mama could hear her. Ida Kate had learned, she'd had to learn, to do all the housekeeping herself. Papa's long hours of work in the fields and barn left him no time to run the home. Ida Kate's days, which had been so happily spent at the new one-room schoolhouse 4 miles from their farm, now were spent on chores, milking cows, churning butter, tending the garden, sewing clothing for herself and Papa from the fabric they bought at the general store, and doing laundry. Now that was the job Ida Kate hated most of all. Even when Mama was alive, Ida Kate had hated it, boiling the endless vats of water and spending the day outdoors washing the clothes with homemade soap, wringing them out, stretching them across the line to dry, then spending the following day heating and reheating heavy irons to press out the wrinkles. Ugh! It was thankless and never-ending work, because the clothes just got soiled again. All the housework meant that Ida Kate had to miss more and more school. Sometimes Martha Rupenthal, Ida Kate's friend who lived on the property adjoining the Demings, would walk over to visit Ida Kate and keep her updated on what was happening at school. And for a while after Mama died, Miss Artemia Butler, the schoolteacher, rode over to Ida Kate's house nearly every week, ostensibly to tutor Ida Kate in arithmetic or geography. She always brought gifts of jam or crocks of butter, and once even a length of calico cloth from the general store, which her father owned. But when it became clear that Miss Butler was more interested in winning Papa's affection than in tutoring Ida Kate, Papa managed to be out in the fields whenever Miss Butler came to call, and soon the visits stopped. Ida Kate and her father had learned to muddle along without Mama, but life just wasn't the same. They both missed Mama's quiet presence, her stories in the evening around the fire, her cheerful touches of flowers in jugs to brighten the dark interior of the sod house. Yes, there were plenty of sad times on the prairie, but there had been good times, too. And now there would be many more good times, Ida Kate felt sure, not to mention the chance to go back to school, once her father's new bride, a widowed lady from Massachusetts, finally arrived. "She's coming, Mama. Today, on the train. If it ever gets here." Ida Kate pulled the telegram out of her dress pocket and read the message over once more. "Regret long delay. Stop. Will leave for Kansas tomorrow. Stop. Arriving Hayes City April 12th. Stop. Eager to meet you at last. Stop. Best regards, Caroline Fairchild." "It's so short, Papa," Ida Kate had complained 3 days ago after the delivery rider galloped off and she and her father read the message. Papa had sent the train ticket a full 2 months earlier, but there had been no word from Mrs. Fairchild. "It doesn't say anything at all about why she hasn't written for so long." "There could be many reasons," her father had replied. "Maybe the baby took sick. Maybe she had second thoughts about journeying west to marry a man she doesn't even know." He shook his head. "I wouldn't blame her if she did have reservations. It's a very big step to take. I think she must be a brave woman." "We're going to like her, Papa. I just know it. Her letters sound so friendly and kind," Ida Kate had said, and a thrill of excitement jumped in her belly now as she saw the first puff of smoke far down the tracks. "She's coming! Papa!" Papa cleared his throat, as if he were practicing to make a speech. "Ahem, ahem, ahem." He stroked his black beard into place. Watching him, Ida Kate had to smile. He was more nervous even than she. But of course, Mrs. Fairchild was coming to be his bride, not his stepmother. Ida Kate reached up to straighten his collar. "Now you look the perfect gentleman, Papa," she told him. "Do stop worrying." "Who's worrying?" he asked, peering down the tracks, his dark eyes anxious. Of course he was anxious. Ida Kate suspected that Mrs. Fairchild was feeling anxious herself. After all, Papa and Mrs. Fairchild, who had never met, planned to marry within weeks if all went well. Yet why shouldn't it go well? Martha Rupenthal's father had also sent east for a mail-order bride, and was very happy with Martha's stepmother, a friendly German woman named Margareta. And now Martha and the 9-year-old twins, Jimmy and Johnny, had 2 new little brothers and a baby sister. Now, I'll have a brother, too, Ida Kate thought, as she watched the black speck in the distance turn into a real train, eating the miles across the prairie, just as it had been chugging along for days and days now, all the way from Massachusetts. For Caroline Fairchild, a widow whose husband had been wounded in the war between the states and never fully recovered, had a son. The baby boy was just a year old, she'd written. Ida Kate was eager to be a big sister, to have a mother in the house, to be a family again. Ida Kate was wearing her best going-to-church dress. She had washed her long brown hair and braided it as neatly as possible, frowning into the small spotty mirror over her bureau as she tied the ribbons into bows. Next year, Papa said, she would be old enough to put her hair up. But today she looked just as she always did. Thin, freckled face, big gray eyes like Mama's, only just a bit neater than usual. She wanted to look presentable for Caroline Fairchild. She wanted to look pretty. Ida Kate felt sure that her father's new bride would be pretty, although Caroline Fairchild had described herself modestly as tall and thin, with auburn hair and greenish eyes, in one of her letters. "I've been told I have the look of a cat," she'd written, "although I cannot be around cats without sneezing." That was the only bad thing about this new bride, Ida Kate reflected. Papa said all the cats would have to live in the barn once Mrs. Fairchild arrived, even Ida Kate's favorite kitten, Millie. But Ida Kate told herself Millie wouldn't mind too much. The barn was warm. The roaring train was now a presence no one could ignore. From that tiny black speck in the distance, the train had become a huge looming monster. Roaring up the tracks, it chugged and puffed, clattering along the rails and sending up clouds of black smoke from its smokestack. The iron wheels screeched as the brakeman applied the brakes. People moved back on the platform. Other people came running out of shops and boarding houses to meet the train. Hayes City's main street was only about a block long, with the train tracks right down the center. The Kansas and Union Pacific Railroad station, just a little red station house with a long platform, was the town's favorite meeting place when a train pulled in. The train shuddered to a stop, the smoke cleared, and Ida Kate found she was holding her breath as the passengers started pushing through the doors. Would she and Papa recognize Mrs. Fairchild from her description? What would she be wearing? They hadn't thought to ask. "Before the war, when I lived with my family in North Carolina," Mrs. Fairchild had written in one of her letters, "I had an eye for fashion and style as much as any young girl. But in this decade since the war, times have been very hard indeed. I've had no money, and little inclination to indulge in fripperies. I'm afraid you will find me very plain." Ida Kate didn't care how plain Mrs. Fairchild's dress was, so long as she had a smile on her face and a kind heart beating in her breast. Ida Kate scanned the passengers crowding off the train. Most were men. Some were soldiers. Some were cowboys. Some were farmers who meant to stake their claim to the 160 acres of prairie land granted by the government, just as Papa had done when he first came to Kansas. Their families would follow later. Some of the passengers were rough-looking, rumpled and unshaven. They would find a place to stay, Ida Kate supposed, at one of the